Okay, the news is dominated over a freaking snowstorm. With wine-tards talking about the flake news, we get it. It's snowing. But I wanted to take this opportunity to address what I think is the most important Senate bill right now in the U.S. House of Representatives. And to understand the whole context of this, you have to understand the American foreign policy under Barack Obama and Donald Trump when it comes to what's exactly happening inside of Syria. Now, this bill is called the Stop Arming Terrorist Act. It was introduced by U.S. Senator Rand Paul, a Republican in the Senate, from the original creator of this bill, Tulsi Gabbard, a Congresswoman Democrat who introduced it in the U.S. Congress. And this bill specifically outlines how U.S. taxpayers should not be financing and supporting radical Islamic terrorists like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. I'm going to link a copy of this bill in the description below so you could read it for yourself, but you might be asking yourself, why do we need a bill so our tax dollars do not finance radical Islamic terrorism? You would think it would be logical, like, oh yeah, we shouldn't support the bad guys. But the original creator of this bill, Tulsi Gabbard, actually traveled all the way to Syria to meet with Bashar al-Assad, their president, on a discovery mission, which now she is in trouble over with the House Ethics Committee. And when she came back from the trip, she went public with the fact that Barack Obama funded ISIS. She even went on CNN and told everyone exactly what she saw. And this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone because, as we know, Barack Obama's foreign policy towards Libya was not only a complete debacle, a complete failure, but utterly destroyed that country and made it a hotbed for radical Islamic terrorists because the United States decided to finance rebel groups against the existing government, Gaddafi, while bombing it at the same time, creating a failed state with massive sectarian violence that made it the hotbed for radical Islamic terrorists that it is now, that were financed by the U.S. government. And under Barack Obama, the United States did the same thing to Syria, as even U.S. pilots came out and confirmed how they were stopped from bombing 75% of ISIS targets inside of Syria. Meanwhile, supposedly accidentally killing 83 Syrian troops, helping radical Islamic terrorists gain key strategic points inside of Syria. And it wasn't only the United States that was financially supporting radical Islamic terrorist groups inside of Syria in order to overthrow Bashar al-Assad. It was also Turkey that not only armed them, but also bought ISIS-controlled oil. And even with all that information being well publicly known and stated fact, Turkey then even came out and pointed the finger at the United States and said that they were the ones who were supporting ISIS and other terrorists inside of Syria. Now you're probably saying, okay, that was Barack Obama. What about Donald Trump? He said he would work with the Russians in order to defeat ISIS. That was his major platform when he was running for U.S. president. But the latest news we have been getting about Trump's plan for Syria is very troubling, and that's why this bill is so relevant right now, and if passed, will change everything. Because we are seeing Donald Trump call for safe zones, aka no-fly zones in Syria. He has invited the Turks in order to participate in the civil war conflict inside of Syria, which we told you last week would be very troubling since Turkish actions have been mainly directed against the Kurds inside of Syria and not against radical Islamic terrorists. This is the same country who openly previously said before that they wanted Bashar al-Assad gone. And now the Syrian president is saying that the American and Turkish forces inside of his countries are, quote, invaders, and that he did not give them the green light in order to enter his country, and that they are not interested in fighting ISIS, only creating a further mess in his country. And it does seem like a mess, as Donald Trump has just announced yesterday that he will be expanding more troops inside of Syria. And yet again, this also angers Turkey, because as hundreds of U.S. Marines are going into northern Syria, they're going to be fighting along Kurdish Syrian forces, the same Kurdish forces that the Turkish want to eliminate and hate. So yes, it is an utter complete mess, especially with Trump now saying that he won't work with Russia in order to defeat ISIS. And now we're seeing Syrian and Russian forces going after the city of Raqqa, while the U.S. Kurdish forces with Turkey begrudgingly angry at them, trying to get into Raqqa too, creating an utterly disastrous situation which wouldn't happen if the United States would not finance radical Islamic terrorists and rebel groups inside of that country. And now, to make the situation worse, we're learning that the U.S. Army won't even leave Syria after ISIS is defeated. So with the unpredictable Donald Trump foreign policy that we have have seen so far. This bill in the House and Senate, even though very late to the situation, is a breath of fresh air and hopefully will stop the United States from repeating the same mistakes that they have been making with their foreign policy for decades. Now, even though the bill was just introduced, and if you like to play politics and still believe in the system, if there ever was a bill to support, this would be it. Now, a lot of people don't know the fact that Barack Obama and his administration created, funded, started ISIS, and they don't know about the complex situation unfolding with Donald Trump's policy towards Syria. So please share this video with them. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of you guys who are supporting us on patreon.com/wearechange, because without you, we wouldn't be here being able to investigate and break down this important news to you. Subscribe, stay tuned. We're going to have a lot more coming here your way on youtube.com/wearechange.